Hi guys, and welcome to our Week 8 edition of our Bucs Banter show. Joining me is our guest Simon Conboy.
What's up, guys?
Well, I'd expect you to be more dejected than you actually seem. I'm assuming you processed the atrocity that happened at the weekend.
Well, this really feels like the eulogy for the Buccaneers season this week. So, I was pretty annoyed. Yes, I mean it was just a bad game on top of being a horrible result. Just a really, really ugly, not particularly entertaining game of football. And it just further highlighted that this Bucs team just cannot put it together. Once again, beating themselves with sloppy play, too many mistakes, just all around not good enough.
No, not at all. Just looking through the tail of the tape, as it were. As far as mistakes go, you've got 3 turnovers by Winston and a fairly mediocre outing for the receiving corps.
It's not really, the turnovers were a big part of the game in terms of they were capitalised on, but the big issue was that the Bucs just kind of once again offensively couldn't get out of their own way. Too many penalties in key situations. There were a couple of really bad calls in this game that did have quite a big impact, but at the end of the day, it was a really poorly played game, and really the difference was that both quarterbacks played really poorly. Both Jameis and Cam struggled with accuracy, making bad decisions. But the difference was that the Panthers were able to utterly dominate the line of scrimmage in terms of pass rush and force some of those errors. Like if you look at Winston's turnovers, one of them's a strip sack by Julius Peppers. Winston's trying to make a play, probably should just take this. I say probably should just take the sack, but he tries to throw like a little shovel pass to the running back. To be fair, if he makes the shovel pass, it looks like a great play, but they're risky plays. That one's a fumble. The second one is a blitz by the nickel corner, and the Bucs have been beaten by this goddamn blitz so many times this year. It's ridiculous. Jameis steps up into the pocket. The nickelback hits the ball as he's throwing it, so it just loops up into the air for an easy interception. And then the third one was when the Bucs were chasing the game, just a bad decision. But that was the difference. 2 of those turnovers were forced. Both quarterbacks threw a similar pick where it was just a horrible decision. And then the other 2 forced turnovers were just... Jameis was under constant pressure all day. He got beat up bad in this one. Every time the Buccaneers had a good drive going, I think they got sacked out of field goal range twice in this one. And penalties as well. Again, because of that pass rush, you had holding penalties. It was just a really, really ugly performance.
On the offensive side of it, Doug Martin seems to have himself a decent game. He's got 70.
Doug was playing well, and again, this is a criticism I've had of the Bucs all season. Not like this. We're not falling way behind in these games. This game was 7-0 for a really long time, and even then at 10-0, which eventually becomes 10-3, you can run the ball more, and we were having success with it. And I want to know. This is the thing I'd want to have a conversation with Dirk Cutter about, is because Jameis does have some freedom at the line of scrimmage. I want to know who it is that is just going away from the run game. Is it Cutter just being like, well, we're passing now? Because we get away from it so quickly. And yesterday was one of the games where it was having as much success as it's had, especially when you can see how we're struggling to protect Winston. I don't understand. In previous games, you could maybe understand the logic to it in that, we're having very little success running it. The passing game's looking good. Fair enough. You can justify it somewhat. But yesterday, it was the opposite way around. The run game was looking good. The pass game was looking bad. And we still ended up with this really big disparity between run and pass. And
obviously, you've also got the other problem at the moment with Winston, with obviously bringing pressure, whether bringing an extra guy into blitz or just 4-3-man pressures. The problem the Bucs have got is he doesn't seem to have the ability to punish opposing defenses for blitzes. They seem to get to him more often than not. I mean, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, obviously they'd punish you for it.
Well, part of that is the way the Buccaneers offense is designed. It's the same, and you as a Cardinals fan can understand this one, is we're a vertical offense. We don't like leaving in too many blockers. We like sending our receivers down the field. And it's, if a team blitzes and gets clean, it wasn't even about blitzing in this game. Whilst one of those big plays did come off a blitz, it was just the 4-man rush just dominating. It was really difficult for the Bucs. I mean, they're a good coverage team over the middle with the linebackers. Kuechly was huge in this game. He had a really dominant performance. The difference between the Panthers with and without him, we've seen over the last few years due to the amount of games that he's missed, is night and day. When he's in there, they look like an elite top 10 type defense. When he's not, they become very average.
Most definitely. Kuechly is the MVP in Carolina, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a difference maker in that game yesterday. I think the Buccaneers may have found a way to win this one if he's not there. I think his impact was that significant. And oddly, the Bucs defense really turned up yesterday. So that's what makes it so different. The offense, it looked like it turned the corner. And then the defense turns up and plays a really solid game. I mean, if you look at Carolina's, I think the Buccaneers held them to under 300 yards total. It might have even been under 250.
I believe, some quick math here, I think just under 250 you held them to. Cam Newton only had 150 passing, and they had a combined 80 odd yards
barely run the ball
between 4-5 players. Yeah,
the Buccaneers defense played really well yesterday. So did the Panthers. Both of the defenses put in good performances against some bad quarterback play. But the difference in the game was pass rush from the Panthers and a lot of penalties on the Bucs in key situations. And they couldn't get out their own way. The Panthers, they were poor, but they played a clean game in terms of the offense.
I mean, offensively, it's kind of weird seeing. I mean, in Tampa, you got two, bona fide NFL caliber receivers in Evans and Jackson. And I'm pretty sure the leader, receiving wise, at least on your team, is Bray. Also,
no, he's got the most receptions, but Evans. Evans leads in all categories, other than maybe touchdowns. I think Bray's got one more touch. No, they've just struggled to find him deep. James's deep ball has not been good this year, and part of it is as well Jackson's getting lost in the shuffle a little bit. I mean, everyone's the way the Buccaneers' offense has worked this year. There's going to be a kind of a decline in everyone's numbers just because there are a lot of guys catching passes. I mean, you get a lot of targets for Bray and Evans. They really feel like 1 and 2. Deshaun Jackson's kind of the third guy in this offense at this point in time, and part of that is he's got a lot of experience with Bray and Evans. I think it will get there. Maybe year 2 when we see that connection start yielding results. And his numbers aren't bad this year.
I think it just comes down to
it's the killer deep ball. That's why you bring him in, and that's what they've had success with.
I don't know, maybe it's a scheme thing, maybe it's as you said a chemistry thing, but they don't seem to have utilised D-Jax as well as Washington.
Some bad luck. Well, one of the big plays yesterday, and there was a bit of an argument actually about the commentators on this one, was there's a play where Winston's pressured, rolls out to the right and flings it down the field to Deshaun Jackson, and I think it was pass interference. Because Deshaun Jackson turns around, ball's heading towards him, slightly to his right. and the defender does not turn his head at all, gets his hand up in his face and has like a hold of one of his arms. To me, I think that gets flagged if Jackson makes a better effort to go after the ball. It's like Jackson kind of feels the contact and just expects the flag.
I'm sure,
and starts moaning. If he makes a move toward the ball, I think, especially the guy touching the arm, that move becomes really obvious.
I'm sure. I mean, D-Jax's time in Philly. I'm sure Philly fans have seen a lot of that. D-Jax will look for the flag before looking for the ball, as it were. Kind of
he knew where the ball was, but he was interfered with. It should have been a flag anyway, but he didn't help himself. You know what I'm saying? I think if you give maximum effort on making the catch, which you should well do, and I shouldn't be having to to say that about an NFL player, but yeah, and I think that maybe takes that play away. I mean, there was another one in the game. The other call, non-call, well, actually it was a call, but it was ridiculous. It was a hold on Peyton Barber, and it was a big play. It was about a 25-yard gain that got pulled back that would have put the Bucs into field goal range when the game was 7-0. But they end up punting, and that was one of the worst calls of the season.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of
fairly like nondescript play, but when you see the referee, I don't know what the referee saw there. Like,
it does seem that a lot of people have taken a lot of ire with the referee this year as opposed to last year.
Well, it's just this was one of those games where, I mean, and in regard to the Deshaun Jackson one, and again, I'm not making an excuse. The Bucs did not deserve to win this game. I think the Panthers' defense played a slightly better game than ours did, and as a result, they probably deserve. Well, they deserve to win off the front four basically, because that was absolutely the difference in this one. But those kind of plays do annoy me, and they were letting a lot go on the outside. It was a very physical game, but when you're allowing for what I think is a lot of stuff that could be flagged to not be, and then you flag something that isn't even close to being a flag by any measure, that's what makes it more annoying. I like consistency. Like, I don't mind when they're not flagging things if it's, if they're just letting guys be physical and they're letting guys, tug and scrap on the sidelines a bit as receivers and corners, or even the offensive lines with the holding. Some crews are a lot more lenient than others as to what they'll let them get away with. It's when it feels like they're refereeing the game one way and then just make a call that kind of contradicts the entire tone of the way they're calling the game.
It does fall into something.
I think it's something I've not really mentioned actually, but I do want to kind of throw out there as a discussion. I think as players, you kind of in the first quarter get an idea for how the refs are calling things.
No, I'd definitely agree with that.
And when that's happening and then they do something like just off the cuff, it is really infuriating, especially when it's game-breaking plays.
Yeah, but
potentially.
I've always beholden to the adage of if the referees are deciding the outcome of a football game, you're not playing well.
Oh no, as I say, it's a couple of iffy calls, but I mean, if it's one of them games that was just so badly executed by both offenses, you feel like no one deserved to win, but someone had to. But yeah, I mean, both quarterbacks, I think it's got to be the story of this one, because they were both really poor for slightly different reasons. I think with Jameis, I don't know if you're aware, but he's not practicing at the minute other than on Friday.
The shoulder injury.
And and this week you could really see the rust. I think when you combine that with the amount of pressure he was under, they just missed some fairly basic throws, and it's when they're missing them, like they're ever so slight, when the throw's slightly low or slightly behind a guy. And first half in particular, there was a lot of plays left on the field where he's making the right read and the throw is just off. Whereas Cam had the opposite problem, where frankly I just don't know what he was seeing on the field. There were a number of occasions particularly on third down. And Cam was under very little pressure in this game, and that's why I'm going to be so critical of his performance, because he had opportunities and just he was rocket arming balls downfield when there were easy short completions to be made. He made Vernon Hargraves look like a superstar yesterday. Some of the balls he was throwing in his direction, it was. Yeah, I think Cam had a really, really rough day passing the ball, as did Jameis. James just constantly under siege. Second half, you could see there was just no rhythm to this Buccaneers attack whatsoever.
Do you not think they should have, for this game and obviously looking to the future, do you not think they should have just sat Winston? Now, I know this was obviously a must-win game. You were 2-4 at the time. But, I mean, it seemed you lost more than you had to gain in this matchup by playing Winston out there, practicing 1 day a week with a shoulder injury.
No, I think you've got to get him used to it. It's the NFL. Quarterbacks in particular, they'll get injured. If you can play through the injury, you're going to have to play through the injury. Record regardless. It's unless there's like a real high chance of aggravating it and it having potential real long-term repercussions. I think you just got to play through it. It's more about
a position like the quarterback position, though, even a niggling shoulder injury. I mean, as you said yourself, you know, it's throwing off your rhythm, your accuracy, and the touch on the ball through just that small niggling injury alone.
Yeah, it's a contact sport. You've got to be able to deal with it at the end of the day. Most players are playing to some degree injured. He might be a little more, but these things are going to happen over the course of his career. I don't think the team can afford to sit him.
You probably can now,
frankly. And on top of that, it's about development. He's still a third-year player. He's still, incredibly young. Reps are all important. You can't replace game reps.
Yeah, this is true. So pretty much a very bleak outlook now. I mean, you're going to need, I don't know, a miracle.
I mean, they'd need to go 8-1 in the last 9 games to realistically make the playoffs. 9-7, maybe 7-2, because 9-7 might sneak you in the NFC.
Obviously, no bye, and if I remember correctly, the Buccaneers' schedule is backloaded with division games.
Yeah, still 5 division games. It's not an enormously difficult schedule, but this team hasn't shown that they're good enough to go on a run. So
as far as you're concerned, playoff aspirations
are
up in smoke.
Oh yeah. If the Bucs can pull off a 4 or 5 win streak, then we'll revisit that subject. But I can't see that happening. That they've given us no reason.
You guys now got one of
the
worst records in the NFC, I believe.
It's down there. Yeah. It's down there. There's a bunch of teams with only 3 wins. So you got the Giants with the 1, the Niners with the 0, and then a whole bunch of 3-win teams.
You are the 3rd lowest in the NFC. The Niners and the Giants obviously having 0 and 1 respectively. So dark days in Tampa.
Well, I mean, the way this team needs to look at it, or at least, ownership do, they've got to be very, very critical, I think, of the coaching. It's a young team. It feels like they're not focused, particularly the way this team's been starting games. It's been slow, it's been messy, and generally ugly. Hasn't been much development, frankly, and not a lot of these players look like they've improved on their performances from last year, if at all. And they look easy to play against. It feels predictable watching them. I feel like considering the expectations this year, and Smith considering the general defensive performance, they really need to hope they can turn things around. Otherwise, they're going to be. When you look at this season, at this point in time, the two teams that jump out to me as major disappointments are both the Bucs and the Raiders.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like they're the two outstanding. Like, man, these teams aren't what we thought they were. And I know you weren't high on this Buccaneers team going into the season.
I was one of the only people.
Even you didn't see
not
this.
2-5. No, at this point in the season.
Well, there would be like 7-9, 8-8 team this year.
Bye week permitting, I mean, I couldn't have foreseen that. I would have assumed the Bucs would have been, maybe about the 500.
500.
Mark, but playing close, competitive games. Not one half of the team turns up week per week. It's a coin toss as to which does what.
Well, I mean, they weren't blown out yesterday. It was just an ugly performance. But the only two games really where they've been blown out that weren't close were the Cardinals game and the Vikings game. But it's not good enough. And there's a lot of holes on this roster still, and knew that heading in. But they're just showing up on a weekly basis.
I think the offensive line, is going to be a matter that needs to be addressed during the off-season for this team.
Well, the guard position's been a problem for a number of years now. Obviously the secondary's been a problem. The biggest one for me still this year has been the lack of pressure. So this team's they've needed the defensive end. Like, the issues that the Bucs have on the roster side of things have been issues for about a decade. It's crazy. They haven't had a pass rusher since Simeon Rice on the edge, and that was a long time ago now. So, well, they had Michael Bennett, but they let him go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've lost count the amount of times I think I've said now. It's a shame that you guys don't have a Simeon Rice.
Yeah, that's what this team needs, and they don't have one. But I mean, next week they got the Saints, and I mean, talk about two teams that have gone in opposite directions since week 2. I'm still not enormously impressed with the Saints, and if the Bucs are going to somehow do anything, winning a game against the Saints would be a good way to start it, because they do have some games coming up. I mean, they've got the Jets, who are playing really well. But you look at the Bucs; they're still more talented than them.
You obviously go into the Saints. You've got to try and break up their hot streak at the moment. They're currently sitting on 5 straight wins.
Yeah, but they're not enormously impressive in those wins, and they've not really beaten anybody yet. So you never know. But they're a confident team. Drew Brees is always hard to beat. And frankly, it's hard to have much confidence in this Bucs team at the minute. They are a messy team. I mean, I look at them and I think the Bills are like the perfect comparison for being the opposite. And the Bucs and the Raiders are very similar this year, if you watch them. Because it feels like both the quarterbacks have been very streaky. The defenses have been sloppy. A lot of mistakes. Bad offensive line play. Struggle to run the ball. They've been eerily similar. And you look at a team like the Bills, and it just feels like the Bills are the polar opposite, where they feel like the Bucs and the Raiders to me feel like teams underachieving. They're making mistakes. They don't look particularly well coached. They don't look very organised. And then you've got the Bills, who seem to be doing the absolute most with the bare minimum. I mean, they trade Marcel Darius away and then hammer the Raiders.
I think the Bills and I think their head coach might be a nominee for Coach of the Year, because I don't know. I have no idea how he's managed what he's done with what little he has. But
no idea. Absolutely none. Their defense is playing stellar. And I look at the Bucs and I'm just like, we're just been a massive disappointment. This team is more talented than they've shown. It's just not come together at all, and to be having this discussion at this stage in the season is pretty disappointing.
Well,
first time I've had expectations in like forever. Have you ever known me before the season? Oh no, there was one other season that year after we went 10-6. That was the only other year I think in the time we've watched football as a pair.
Yeah, the year you were technically screwed out with a playoff appearance because the Seahawks had a 9-7 record.
No, just
it was a 7-9 record.
No, 7
they got in because they won the division.
Yeah, we had three more wins than them and a tiebreaker where we beat them 35-7 in week 16 or something.
Well, before we get on to the wrapping up segment, if you had to pick, say, 2 issues in your mind on each facet of the game, offense, defense, and say coaching, where do you think they should improve?
What if we're talking off season already?
Going forward, if you could identify, like, say 1 or 2 things on each section that you think are fundamentally need to be looked at.
You've got to look at coaching changes if things continue along this vein, because I think any time you've got a team that's underachieving like this, it's got to be considered. It just has to be. Keep the front office together, though. I like what the GM's done, but yeah, you got to look at coaching changes. It's just it looks like a badly coached team. So, and a lot of these issues, they've been long-term issues. In terms of the roster, need to find a pass rusher desperately. And the problem is the draft is not the most reliable thing for that. It's very difficult to find a pass rusher that can have an instant impact. So that's really got to be priority number 1 in terms of something that could help this team. Corner is still a gigantic need. Hargraves has really played quite well the last 2 weeks. He had a really good performance yesterday in the passing game.
He's had quite an understated year, personally. I think he's played.
No, he had a terrible year. Up until the last 2 weeks, he had been poor. But these last 2 weeks, he's played significantly better, so that helps. But, Brent Grimes is a free agent and he's 1 million years old. So, corner's a big need. And the offense looks, for the most part, loaded, but the guard position's a big problem. I still feel like they need a better left tackle than Donovan Smith. DeMar Dotson's getting up there. Just stick Donovan Smith on the right-hand side, find a left tackle, which is easier said than done, of course. But those seem to be the primary issues. I mean, if I could pick anything for this Bucs team to have, it would actually be the left tackle, simply because you're invested in Jameis Winston. You want to be a deep passing team. Having a really good pass protector would be golden. And the edge rusher has got to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised the Bucs never made a move for spin move guy. Yes, sorry, yeah, Dwight Freeney.
Now they were expecting Noah Spence to break out, but he got injured early on and seemed to struggle through that shoulder injury. And other than that, they've not really got that many pass rushers.
No, it's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame.
Didn't really struggle finding him.
Been able to bring quite a bit to the team as well, because he did in Zona, did in Atlanta, and he.
Well, he's in Seattle. He's in Seattle now, so.
Well, if we move on to wrapping up, even though kind of general air of disappointment, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the positives from this game were simple. The defense played a good game. The pass rush wasn't there, but every other facet was pretty solid. Secondary had probably its best game of the season. Linebackers played well. Played the run well. I mean, not that the Panthers can run the ball for toffee, but that was all positive. And Doug Martin continues to look good when given opportunities, but other than that, there's no real positives about the offense. Jameis had a bad game. I mean, the one thing I will quickly sort of throw out with Jameis Winston this year is his decision making has improved significantly. there's a lot less of the oh no, what the heck is he doing plays. So I think the Bucs do deserve some credit, or Jameis and the coach staff deserve some credit for that, because he has toned it down significantly. But the consistency, it is. I don't even know if you could say it's a James Winston problem at this stage, because it seems to be the whole team. But yeah, there's just an incredible lack of consistency in this team. They need to get it turned around.
Oh, most definitely. It's kind of weird how both the Titans and the Bucs, so funnily enough, two out of the three teams on this show were quite hyped up, and you turned into nothing.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you look at, I mean, while the Titans
are
Titans still top of the division.
Come on.
You'd have to say the Jags and the Texans. I mean, the Texans in particular are the more impressive teams right now.
Oh, definitely, but
especially the Texans.
Yeah, we'll get
like
to that tomorrow, though, the podcast.
Yeah. Well, you need to make sure you watch that game. Ask Arnie if you can borrow his Game Pass or something. He'll want you to watch it.
I do remember him saying he was quite disappointed in the fact that he was enjoying watching that game, even though the Texans were playing.
I kind of just wish it had gone to overtime. It was bonkers. To see the Texans do that,
I know.
Crazy.
It is a bizarre world where the Texans have one of the most high-flying offenses by virtue of their quarterback is a lunatic. But anyway, we will cover this more tomorrow on our normally scheduled podcast.
Oh wait, do you know the Will Fuller stat though? I just want to focus on out there because it's funny. He's got it's either 11 or 14 catches on the season, and it's either 6 or 7 touchdowns.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah, and they're all bombs for the most part.
I'm not surprised considering who it is.
Yeah, he's fast, and Deshaun Watson likes to throw the ball far. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, real disappointing from the Bucs' perspective. I'm slightly over it today. Normally, I'm livid when we lose to the Panthers, but you know, once again, it's like most of the last few seasons. I'm kind of resigned to condemnation because we're mediocre. We're mediocre to poor, and eventually there comes a point where you just accept it.
Yeah, it's hard to be asked about a team that they themselves cannot be asked.
I'm asked. It's just I'm not. Yeah, compared to like weeks 1 through 4, where I was, well, maybe not weeks 1 through 4, but those first like 2 or 3 losses where you're just furious after the games, and you let it linger the whole week. There comes a point where you're like, well, the season's basically over. This was that game. This was that. Yeah, it's truly over now. What can you do? I'll watch and I'll care and I'll hope for the best, but the season's over.
You can join.
Well, we'll revisit. Say 5-game win streak.
But the
Saints can do it, so can we.
Quarterback.
Yeah, but they're doing it. Like Breeze is playing fine, but they're not doing it because they've got a Hall of Fame quarterback playing like this is the least Saints team we've seen in. He didn't throw a touchdown yesterday. It's the first time they've won a game since 2009 where he didn't throw a touchdown.
Oh, you can come join me and the Cardinals in just resign to failure corner. Come join me in the corner.
I'll probably bring Chappers along as well after that Thursday game. I'm sure.
But we'll talk about this tomorrow. Anyway, right, we'll close up then. I think we've said everything we can. So we started talking about other teams there. So yeah, that tends to be the way when the team you talk about tends to suck a bit. Right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. It was not a very jolly version of Bucs Banter. There is no hope here. We should
It's there's the sliver. There's still that fan degree of sliver
I'm
that
gonna,
every
I'm gonna
fan should
rename
have,
this.
unless they're like the reason you can't have that is because your team is like injured reserve.
Pretty much. I mean, we might rename this from Bucs Banter to the No Hope Podcast. So, anyway.
I mean, if it been any year other than this year, would have been called that anyway.
Any other year, the Cardinals would have been competitive. So.
Successes.
Yes, we have.
No, you've seen a lot of bad years.
Whose name begins with D and A. Anyway.
Well, actually, he's relevant. He's the backup.
Anyway, let's get this over with. Right, guys. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow, probably around similar time frame to this, about 7:30 GMT, for the regularly scheduled podcast where I will be a guest, and so will Arnie, and Conboy will be hosting.
Yeah, I'll be hosting as per. You know, if you can like, share, subscribe, check out the other videos, that'd be grand. I've always got previews and reviews going up. The reviews tend to be angrier than these. So, no, they're not. They were, but then I realised they're probably better if I watch the game a couple of times over the space of a couple of days, which is why they've been coming out a little bit later. But just feel you get a better understanding if you watch a game, give it a bit of time, and watch it again.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and that will be it from us for today.
As always, guys.